Each of you are talking about local control, and several of you are talking about teacher salaries. Should that be a state or a local issue on teacher salaries?
Local. We need a free market. We need to attract the best and keep them, and that should be a local district decision.
I'm with you. Local. Competition is good for the market. If you're a great teacher, you need to go and teach where somebody's going to pay you a really good salary. So I say the local level.
Yeah, teachers are employees of the local school districts. It needs to be a local decision with support from the state. If there's adequate and fair funding from the state, then locals are unable to do that, or enabled, pardon me, to do that.
I believe in the state minimum, and I believe that the locals should provide the additional funding to the state minimum, but I believe we should not take away the state minimum because there are many districts, our legislatures, who will push us back and back and back if we don't include the state minimum.
I agree. I agree. So you spoke for me.
Thank you.
Very much.
First time I ever spoke for a Navy guy.
Go Navy.
Anybody else have a question? Yes, sir.
Mr. Lee, you referenced academic work ethic for students, and since you raised the topic,
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. Say that again.
you talked about academic work ethic for students, and since you referenced that as a question of value in the legislature, if students are struggling within the public schools, will you view that as a matter of a lower level problem such as academic work ethic among students or parental involvement? Or will you see that as an issue with the policies of the legislature? And can you give us an example of when you would attribute that to a policy with the legislature that needs to be addressed?
Well, I think you have to let that go at the local level. The teacher is going to be directly there with the student. That teacher, he or she, is going to know or is going to try to find out what the problem is. And I've seen that. I had a young lady who was a head cheerleader, and I was prepping them for a test, and they were going around the room. She wouldn't read. And I said, well, why not? She says, I don't read. Well, that's a problem, okay? But somebody needs to find out why this young lady's not reading. That's not a policy issue coming from the state. If it's from the state, I can fight that. But at the lowest level there, teacher, student, I just need you to tell me what you need me to do to help you fix that.
I wanted to know if you guys would comment on when it comes to local control and that UIL, and why it basically mandates the district that they have to, especially here in Tyler, drive back and forth to Dallas all the time, wasting tons of classroom time and tons of money. What is their role? What should it be?
I know it's frustrating, and in case you can hear the question, we're talking about like in town we have to drive to Dallas for sporting events because they draw these arbitrary district lines, right? They put us in competing with schools that we are just too far. It's not practical. It cuts into classroom time, right, and getting back home late. It's a huge problem. UIL is it's an agency, and they're delegated authority by the legislature. We've heard about this for a while, but I got to say, recently it's become more of a problem, and when it goes through another round of redistricting. So yes, the legislature's got to intervene and got to get some more local control. Again, that's a huge example of where local control needs to be in place. It's not only inconvenient, it's expensive, right? I mean, the fuel and the time and everything else. It's a real problem. Local control will be the solution to that as well. I'm glad you brought that up.
So the UIL is a product of the University of Texas. If they'll just turn it over to A&M, we'll fix it.
No more comments on that?
Here, I'll comment on this, as we all know, and the one thing I want you to understand from me is that I believe in extracurricular activities because I believe, and I have seen in person the involvement of young people in those activities that keep them in school. And I believe if we didn't do those things, that we would see so many more students that would not come to our schools and would not finish school. So I believe in our extracurricular activities. It's always going to be an issue because of the changing in size that we do. And so I think the UIL does a really good job for some of that, but we need to take a look at some extreme cases that you're talking about because we keep kids out too late. Football is one thing, but the other activities, we could certainly provide local control and local activities to be able to do those things with local schools.